Welcome, everybody, to the Too High Podcast. I am Seth Galino alongside Diante Lee. Diante, what's going on?
Not much, man. Not much. It was honestly a crazy weekend of football. Obviously, you get that NFL slate and everything that happened on Saturday with the conference championship games. And then we had this, 96-hour saga with the University of Miami, which I know we'll get into. It felt like it drug on forever. Kind of coming to a personal crescendo for me, which was like the Stuart Mandel reporting on how Miami fell into the amount of money that they needed in order to make all these moves with their football program. So honestly, my head has been spinning really since the end of Bedlam with Lincoln Riley and the LSU thing or the USC thing. And everything from there just feels like it's been one step up in the wildness.
Okay, you're throwing me off because I actually wanted to ask you more personal questions, but we can save that for another time. Let's get into college football then. This is hashtag CFB Talk presented by Manscaped. I'm warning you guys. I was told the Manscaped read has to be 60 seconds. So buckle up.
Everybody buckle in.
Let's go.
Everybody buckle in.
All right. I'm going to do this in the most sultry way possible. I'm going to bring the mic up to my mouth here. Manscaped. Manscaped just launched their new products, including their all-new Ultra Premium Body Wash and 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner. It's time to give yourself, or someone who needs it, the gift of beautiful skin and hair this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer has proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to reduce cuts on your skin. It's also waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. And they've also launched their 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, which has key ingredients with benefits that include hydrating, nourishing, conditioning the scalp, and strengthening your hair at the same time. 'Tis the season to load up on Manscaped products. So get yourself and anyone in your family or your friends the best gift of all, the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code PFF at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using promo code PFF. All right. That's enough of that.
I just want to say that for however uncomfortable it is for you guys as listeners, I'm wearing headphones as this is happening, okay? This is all happening directly in my ear, okay? Yeah. And I don't like any of it.
No one should like any of this. Okay, let's go. Let's start with the news of that kind of just happened today on kind of work backwards. Like you were alluding to, Manny Diaz is out as Miami head coach. I don't think it's official yet.
Are we sure? Yeah, are we sure?
It's going to be Mario Cristobal as the new Miami head coach. So yeah, and it was your thoughts on this whole. From beginning to end, how this whole saga played out. Manny, how your thoughts on Manny Diaz's tenure at Miami, and now how do you think it's going to work with Cristobal?
Well, I think Manny Diaz almost kind of caught, I think, an unfair bit of hell right at the beginning because of the end of like the Mark Richt tenure, right? Because you remember they had that unbeaten season up until they played Pittsburgh on Thanksgiving weekend a few years back. And then I think they had another good year right after that, which I think led some people to believe that Miami was ready to turn a corner when really it was just that he happened to catch them on an upswing of like a quietly really good recruiting cycle. Mark Richt did that Manny Diaz really didn't have. And they still had some very competitive defenses. I thought they had some interesting teams, in his short tenure there. But I do understand the idea that, hey, if you can go get a guy like Cristobal just looking like blindly at resumes, I can understand how the University of Miami might feel like there's an upgrade to be had there. So that's just kind of like flatly looking at it completely in a vacuum. I will say the way that this was carried out is honestly, it might be more crazy than the way that everything happened with like Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma and Notre Dame for their new schools. The idea of having a head coach basically sitting with the axe like over his head as he's on the recruiting trail is insanity to me. I think the fact that all of this was public, also to me is an indication that for as much as Miami would like to make everyone believe that they have the most buttoned up organization now, that it's really not, that all this information was basically coming out in real time. Manny Diaz is kind of fired, but not really. We're waiting on the other head coach to accept it. The second he does, he's fired. But if he doesn't, then he's definitely our head coach. And we're going to act like none of this had ever happened at all. I do think that, and other people have made this point, a lot of this is kind of like unintended circumstance or unintended consequences from early signing day, because now everything has just been ramped up in terms of the intensity of the recruiting going into the month of December. So all this stuff is happening on this really quick, ridiculous kind of timeline, which is how you get all these coaching changes happening at once. Again, flatly, they made a good hire, right? Like, Cristobal can recruit.
Don't tell that to some of our Oregon fan friends.
Hey, we don't have to entertain anybody who's still stuck in 2012. Okay, we don't have to entertain those Oregon fans. But he's clearly a good recruiter. Obviously, a hometown kid. And it seems like, honestly, the most important thing for Cristobal is that it seems like Miami is making strides to try to upgrade the way that they approach their athletics program. And if that's the case, then a coach like Cristobal can make something happen. Now, I will say, I mean, obviously for Miami fans, it's going to be hard to explain that now, given, the profile change with what's going on around the program and all the different kind of promises that we've seen and reporting about their spending and seriousness with football. I don't think that Miami being back necessarily has to mean that they're playing in the college football playoff. In fact, I'd probably really warn Miami fans against that. Not that it's not possible, but the trajectory is not going to be, hey, kind of a sad story in the ACC year after year to immediately being a playoff contender. And by immediately, I mean like that 2 to 4 year time window, like coming out of one recruiting cycle into the next. I don't know if we can judge them on that through that lens. I do think that what they should do is be competing for the ACC championship every year. And that, I think, is within the realm of possibility because Cristobal was able to do that at Oregon, which is a place that does not have the same kind of built-in advantages in terms of a talent pool that you would have in your backyard at Miami. What was kind of your read? I'm most interested to know what your read was, basically like in the last 3 days, and then landing on how you ultimately feel about the hire now.
Well, I think the hire is pretty good. Again, I try to we have a friend who a lot of people know who is a big Oregon fan who just puts a lot of anti-Cristobal writings out there. And it's skewed me.
We can call it what it is.
It's skewed me because I'm like, oh, maybe Mario Cristobal is the worst head coach of all time. And I do think it's funny, when you're like a fan of the program and you're watching every game, then you get into these little minutia of issues that you have where it's like, oh, can't call timeouts, doesn't understand, clock management and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, maybe. I don't know. I don't watch enough Oregon to tell you that. But I will say that every coach at one point has had the clock management issue attached to him.
Yeah.
But so maybe that's true. I don't know. But when you look at it from like a 10,000 foot view, I mean, this was a program that was kind of on shaky-ish ground. Now, I think they were always bound to bounce back because they put a lot of money in the program and the Pac-12 is down. So that was kind of going to happen. But with that said, it happened with Mario Cristobal. And so, that's how we kind of judge these things in college football. Therefore, he deserves the quote unquote better job. I'm not sure it's a better job per se. It is maybe a better job if Miami wants to become serious again, which apparently they are because they have this influx of cash all of a sudden, like you were alluding to. So yeah, I think it ends up being a good hire. I think the Manny Diaz thing was, it's weird. Like they have to make this decision really quickly. After the Mark Richt kind of suddenly retired. And remember, Manny Diaz was already the coach at Temple at the time. He had accepted to be the head coach at Temple. He was the Miami DC. He had accepted to be the head coach at Temple. And then a week later, or a day later, I don't even remember the timeline here. Mark Richt retired and they called back Manny up and said, no, you're coming back. We actually need a head coach now. So you're coming back. I like Manny Diaz. He's bounced around a lot. which it's probably par for the course for a lot of college coaches. But we only talk about the ones that don't bounce around because these are the guys. But it's very common for guys to bounce around as much as Manny Diaz has. Again, it's not a really fair fight for him. This was not a good roster with not great facilities. Certainly some NFL talent in places, but just not enough. So I understand why it never worked out there. And it, like you said, it can work out in terms of them being competing in the ACC. And obviously, as we see this year, any team can win the ACC if Clemson falters at any point in the season. I don't expect that to continue. I don't expect Clemson shaky I don't expect another shaky season from Clemson. But if it does happen, then any ACC team can win the conference, like we saw Pitt do this year. So yeah, there's a capability there. Obviously, you talk about the guys that he needs to bring in. I guess he's not going to bring in Joe Moorhead, even though maybe he calls up Joe Moorhead and says, "Hey, now we're at Miami, come back," like what happened with Mandy and Temple. But I think he's got to bring in. I think his name is Alex Mirabel, the offensive line coach. That has been one of the best offensive line coaches in college football.
I mean, honestly, you could make an argument that he's like a top 10 assistant coach in all of college football, and has been so for like years on end now.
Yeah, so like bringing him in, I don't know who the DC is going to be. I couldn't even tell you who the DC was at Oregon this past year. So yeah, obviously bringing these guys in, but it is different than I talked about with Brian Kelly at LSU how we need to know who his coordinators are now because they're trying to win a national championship next year. It's a little different with Cristobal. He brings in some younger coaches around him. I don't know. But that matters a little less. It's really about program building and I would say especially on the offensive line building there at Miami. So I think it's a good hire. I don't think it's isn't this like automatic turnaround? No, but I think it is a good hire. And then let's flip to Oregon. Like now, what's Oregon going to do?
That is a hell of a question. Honestly, I don't know. Again, I mean, the more that I think this ball of yarn is rolled out, I think the tougher it is for the next Power 5 school that's going to end up at the butt end of this coaching cycle. I've heard the name Matt Campbell get thrown out there. That to me is actually something that's kind of interesting for a school like Oregon. To me, that is not necessarily a natural powerhouse. I think the smartest idea that they could possibly have now is to try to find a guy that'll stay. You need to find a guy who can really give you a long-term investment, or somebody who, if they're going to leave, they're going to leave here to go to the NFL, right? Not leave to go take another P5 job. So to me, I think a name like that would be really interesting.
Because it's too straight now. With Willie Taggart leaving for Florida State and now Cristobal leaving for Miami.
Exactly. I mean, you've drained out basically the entire Chip Kelly tree, right? Like they did Helfrich. That didn't work. You brought in Cristobal, who was kind of that quote-unquote outsider type that helped, maintain the program. You had Willie Taggart, who was another kind of outsider type, who was decent but did not really elevate the program either. I think that for them, what you cannot do if you're Oregon is put yourself in a situation where you start losing the ground that you've built in the Pac-12 North. Washington has been down. Stanford has obviously slipped, but you don't want to take a step back with them, especially knowing what's happening in the Pac-12 South with USC. So to me, I think that they're going to have to I think they're right in the same position that all these other schools are, which is having to pay a boatload of money to get a proven name to come in that you can sign to some, exorbitant 7, 8, 9-year deal for a ridiculous, average per year on the contract. So I'm not sure, from a name wise, I haven't seen enough that really blew me away. None that really piqued my interest outside of Campbell. But it does have to be somebody that they're going to get some kind of real long-term commitment for him.
Well, I wonder if you bring Chip back and then he's like, all right, I've done it. I had my big success at Oregon. Didn't work out in Philly. Didn't work out in San Francisco. I've kind of rebuilt myself a little bit in Los Angeles at UCLA, but Oregon is where I belong. That's my home, quote unquote. let me get
I
there,
think,
and I'm just there forever now.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's the move that makes you happiest because Chip is a guy I think who would go there that you could actually legitimately make the argument that maybe he retires there, but if he doesn't retire, he's not looking for the first thing out again because he's done that already, right?
Yeah,
He knows the layout. He's been successful there. Obviously, led them to a national title. Basically, is the reason why this school has the kind of profile it has over the last decade and a half, anyway. Outside of like Nick Aliotti and all the other guys that were there that kind of built it up to that
yeah.
point for Chip to really kind of change the trajectory and shoot them up to where they are now. That would be a really interesting kind of battle, especially given the fact that that's a conference rival that you're trying to poach from. So I would love to see that play out, selfishly as a SC fan. Um, but that would be, I think that is probably the pathway for Oregon. I think that makes everybody the happiest, and it's probably honestly the path of least resistance as well.
Look, I wonder if I just talked about it with the Manny Diaz thing with Moorhead going to be the OC at Miami. But what if Moorhead? What if they're like, hey, like, what if you want to? They try and get Moorhead back to be the head coach at Oregon. I mean, we've talked about this before. We both like his offense. Unfair the hands he was dealt at Mississippi State to a certain degree, but I think he would have been. I think he's would be a good head coach, and he's the guy that I think would stick around if they could. Obviously you get fired if you don't have success, but if they had success, I could see him sticking around for a long time, to tell you the truth. I mean, then
Right.
so I don't know, maybe him.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, the next bit of news on the coaching carousel is Joe Brady getting fired with the greatest news dump of all time at 1:20 p.m. Eastern time on a Sunday afternoon. He's out as Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator. I guess like the Panthers weren't interesting enough for me to watch too much of them over the past 2 years, so I don't even know. I remember talking to Steven Ruiz when he was watching them last offseason, and basically he would just kept asking me like, hey, is this something that LSU ran in 2019? And be like, yeah, that's it. Is this something? So it's like clearly there was a lot of the same stuff that was going on in offensively, but I really couldn't tell you. Obviously, we know they tried to get McCaffrey the ball a lot. The issues with quarterback play, Teddy being Teddy. I love Teddy, but he's Teddy. And then I don't tell to anyone listening knows how absolutely insane trading for Sam Darnold was. And then obviously him being bad and then getting injured, then having to get Cam off the street. It just never worked out. And they were okay. They could run the ball okay. They were like middle of the pack running the football, but they could never really throw it effectively over the past 2 seasons. And that's obviously a big problem. The issue with Matt Rule, him saying they want to run the football more, Brady not being that type of coach. I mean, we've seen him 2 years now, plus like kind of at LSU. Obviously, he wasn't the play caller at LSU, but we saw how LSU, once he was hired, became a pass-first offense.
Right.
And then, honestly, like, there's Matt Rule is a little suspect to me, man. Because here's a guy who was at Baylor with a whatever quarterback, Charlie Brewer, and had some really good success with Charlie Brewer, keeping it simple for him and running RPOs and doing all that stuff that we all talk about, like keeping the game simple for a quarterback who isn't like this elite player. But then he's out here talking about, I don't want RPOs. I want to hand the ball off no matter what. Like,
Right.
But what the hell did you just watch? Like, but you're not watching your own team like for 4 years at Baylor, turning them around. So, like, I can understand 100% why there was this disconnect between Brady and Rule. Obviously, it's a weird time for it to happen. And I think Brady seems like a good offensive coordinator. And he'll bounce back somewhere. Maybe it's at Oregon. I don't know. He'll bounce back somewhere. So maybe it's at, OU under Brent Venables.
Honestly.
So anyways, your thoughts on that out of nowhere, out of left field announcement?
Yeah, I honestly, it has less to do to me with what the stock is for Joe Brady than just like my complete misunderstanding of what this Matt Rule regime in Carolina is, like you were saying. It just begs the question, like, what are the actual expectations here? Because I'm like, what is this middle ground that you thought you were going to get where you go get young guys who have proven to not necessarily be successful at the NFL level. So they kind of have this, hodgepodge of talented, guys, but guys that have warts Then you stack that with like the ultimate talented guy with the warts in Sam Darnold. Like that doesn't work out. You had Teddy Bridgewater the year before. You let him go, and there was all this disappointment about how that year turned out, as though Teddy Bridgewater hasn't been who he's been from the moment he left Louisville. So I didn't understand that part. You bring in Cam Newton. He has his own warts at this stage in his career as well. So that wasn't a long term solution either. So this leaves you exactly where they said they did not want to be the first time they walked away from Cam, right? The whole idea between bringing in a new coach and making all these quarterback changes is, hey, we don't want to be in a position where we got veteran quarterbacks, but we haven't built a team that's ready to compete for titles. Well, you know what that sounds like you should do? Embrace the rebuild. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Instead of, trying to sell this vision that something else was coming, it doesn't come, and now you're left basically with no quarterback. You have no OC. Phil Snow has obviously built this defense up to a nice place, and I think that when all the pieces are there and together, that will be their calling card ultimately. But to me, that's not why Matt Rule was hired in the first place. You were hired because you were supposed to bring in something innovative, something that would allow a team like the Panthers that has never really had, outside of Cam Newton, some consistent kind of identity on offense that's allowed them to be competitive in that division. Exactly that. And they're once again in a place where they do not have it. I don't know what this offseason is going to look like, and I can't imagine for David Tepper that I would not understand from David Tepper if he still took the patient approach with Rule going into next season. Like, this kind of has to be an indication that, like, he's got to be on the hot seat, or at least he's got to be warming up at some point.
Are you excited for 2022 Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator Jason Garrett? Because that's that's kind of where this is headed. This is the type of person he's going to hire, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if we're to take what he said in his press conferences following
Chan Gailey
dismissing him, that's how these guys stick around.
So
have fun, enjoy that.
Okay, I brought it up, but let's get deeper into it. Brent Venables is the new head coach at Oklahoma. Surprising, I think, for both of us, given what we've heard about Venables and him kind of just wanting to be a defensive coordinator. He was a defensive coordinator at Clemson. Obviously, we both think he is a very smart and talented defensive coordinator. Going to a team that certainly needs defense, but at the same time, you don't want to sack. This would be another good example of a mistake that he can make of hiring the college equivalent of Jason Garrett. The conservative guy, like, I'm a defense guy, let me get a conservative offense coordinator. They need to keep that level of offense that they've had under Lincoln Riley, but obviously get slightly better on defense to give them a chance in the SEC as where they're going, or give them the chance before they get to the SEC to like sneak into the playoffs again. Not sneak into the playoffs, but win the Big 12 and then win a game in the playoffs. So, your thoughts on Brent Venables?
To your point, I mean, again, and I feel like we say this with every head coaching hire that happens, it's about the rest of the staff around him that really matters. So if the reports are that Jeff Lebby is really the guy who's in tow with Venables, I feel a lot better about the immediate returns that they'll see on offense. And I think that will allow them to kind of bridge that gap, because he's obviously, I think it's pretty obvious that Venables is probably not going to approach how he recruits and how he wants to build and develop talent the same way that Lincoln Riley did. But you're going to need an offensive mind who can help you out with that transition, especially as a defense first guy. We don't have any point of reference for what Venables even likes out of an offense, right? Like, what he values, what he thinks, his vision for offensive football. We know that he likes to, we know that he has a blitz, a pressure for everything defensively. But we've seen these aggressive defensive coaches get into these head coaching positions and then hire offensive coordinators that run the ball on first and second down and throw screens on third. So that, to me, is going to be the biggest tell. Lebby has obviously done a lot to help, evolve Lane Kiffin's offense, which is a guy that we already think of as a major innovator in the sport. So, if you're bringing in a guy who's that innovative, who's willing to push the envelope in the ways that Ole Miss has over the last few years, that's really encouraging. And if that's real, they're going to probably be in a really good place schematically. And then from there, obviously, it's going to be trying to stop the bleeding on, what's happening with their talent pool right now with all the transfer portal news and guys decommitting.
Yeah, honestly, like, that is the main thing. And it's going to be tough because, like, there's a chance. I mean, it's Oklahoma we're talking about. But because of all the talent leaving, man, the roster might not be that good next year.
People
That's
really
scary.
need to brace themselves for a 6-6 Oklahoma.
Ooh,
That's not something that we ever talk about, dude. But it can really be on the table.
Yeah, like this is a weird situation for them. Again, I think Venables is a hell of a defensive coach and maybe a hell of a head coach, but the roster just might not be that good. You know, it reminds me of like Tennessee this year. Like, I love Josh Heupel. I think his offense is great, but Tennessee had no players, and they actually did okay given that all that said. But like, Oklahoma just might not have any freaking players, and that's a problem. All right, let's stick in the Big 12 and let's start talking about what happened this weekend. Conference championship game that leads to the playoffs, which sees Alabama take on Cincinnati, Georgia take on Michigan. So yeah, Big 12 championship game. Baylor makes the goal line stop at the end. Crazy game. Our boy Dave Aranda, Big 12 champion in his second year. Crazy.
Insane.
Absolutely.
Coming off a 2-7 season during the COVID year.
Yeah.
Like, insanity.
So it's funny because we both sat here, last week and said like, oh man, I don't think they're gonna be able to move the football. Like, and guess what? They kind of didn't move the football.
They didn't.
But they had like a 25-yard drive for a touchdown. They had a 35-yard drive for a touchdown, and they had a 45-yard drive for a touchdown. And that's how you can win games when you don't really move the football. The defense was great. Spencer Sanders, the old Spencer Sanders, came out, threw some really bad interceptions. Then Oklahoma State's offense turned the ball over to Baylor to give them field position and then scored just enough points. And then both teams couldn't move the ball off offensively, but it was just enough for Baylor. And they get that crazy stop at the end. Number 42, who had a great game, forgot his name. Number 42 on Baylor Stevens had a great game leading up to that point, and then he put himself on the legendary pedestal with that play at the end.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just him. I mean, their entire safeties, all of their DBs had some of the most impressive breaks on the ball and tackling in the open field that I had seen all season long. That to me was a really big deal. I think that actually influenced a lot of Spencer Sanders' decision making throughout the game, was a lack of confidence in the fact that he could beat some of these safeties to the spot. Because when he tried, he ended up turning the ball over a bunch. Baylor has been doing a really good job of finding creative ways to generate pressure in spite of not really having, any elite pass rush or even, B level pass rush up front. So that was really impressive to watch. Earlier in the year, they threw a lot of quarters at Oklahoma State, and that gave them trouble. And really the only reason why they lost that game, and maybe we probably didn't spend enough time on Baylor's perspective on it, was they were able to get stops against Oklahoma State as well. Their offense was just so awful throughout that game that they could not ever gain control of the flow of things back. But it was an impressive showing. And, Spencer Sanders, obviously, I think everybody's kind of been waiting to see if he could turn the corner throughout his career. I think that, Saturday was the worst of it, but it was emblematic of some of the issues that he's had in his time at Oklahoma State. And like you said, I mean, the short fields gave Baylor an opportunity to generate just enough offense, especially with the redshirt freshman backup quarterback that was not expecting to play in the Big 12.
And he played fine.
He was on fire to start the game.
Yeah.
He had all those completions in a row.
But they weren't. I don't know. I have to remind myself.
It wasn't bombs away. A lot of that was like, checking the ball down, getting the ball to tight ends, throwing the ball to slots, and letting them go get yards after the catch and stuff like that, which did a lot of making up for the fact that they, again, could not really establish any explosive plays on the ground. So this is just one of those weird things. Again, like, you flip a coin on this game 10 times, I can't tell you that Baylor actually wins it a majority of the time.
I don't think so.
But getting all those interceptions and turnovers around midfield or in negative territory for Oklahoma State and being able to capitalize on it, that was just enough. And then, like you said, being able to run a guy down that has the angle on you with the end zone less than 2.5 yards away, that was an incredible feat of effort. Like, probably my favorite play of the weekend. Maybe of the season.
Just incredible play. So that the Baylor win puts them in the I think they're going to Sugar Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, against Ole Miss. I think so. And that takes Oklahoma State at this time out of the playoffs. So it's like there was like the first domino on Saturday. And then the second domino, I guess, was Cincinnati winning and beating Houston and clinching their spot. I haven't rewatched that game. In fact, I didn't really watch it on Saturday. But we'll talk about Cincinnati when we talk about Alabama in a second. And then obviously the next domino was the SEC championship game, which I don't want to toot my own horn, but like from like week 3, I was like, Alabama's going to score a lot of points on Georgia. Because and I said this before, and even rewatching the game, I'm not even sure if this is true, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Like, there's that styles makes fights thing, and when I keep going back to the same thing. And I watched that game last year in Tuscaloosa, and I said, "Damn, that Georgia defense did everything right. They did everything you're supposed to do against Alabama." And guess what? They scored 40, and I was like, "It's gonna happen again, man. Like, it's just." Going to happen again. And I think like I every week that went from the LSU game to the Tennessee game to the Auburn game, I was like, I thought less and less that this was going to happen. And then of course it happens because Bryce Young was the best player in the field, I think.
I mean, to me, it wasn't close either. It wasn't close. Like, I would not be mad if he wins the Heisman and the Heisman voters come out and say that he won it against Georgia in the SEC championship game, and that was the sample size that we needed in order to make that decision, because it was that exact kind of game. The one thing I think that kind of blew me away the most was just his ability to find the holes down the field, and a lot of that I think is going to be to blame for Georgia not having that top flight pass rusher like Alabama has in Will Anderson, right? Like, I think if they have one of those guys, it takes some of the strain off of what you're doing in terms of coverages. The way that a Georgia, the way that a Alabama wants to play in coverage, it does inevitably lead to the opportunity for you to bust coverages, because there's a lot of exchanges happening. Different route depths mean different things for the way that they match up coverage wise. So those opportunities are there, but that's where, having the pass rush to add a layer of coverage like we've talked about before would be a really big help. And I think Kirby kind of pointed to this in the halftime interview, where he was like, dude, if we don't get to him, he's going to get to us, talking about Bryce Young, and that's exactly what it was. And this is something that I think kind of is above even talking about scheme or play design or anything like that. There's just something to be said for a guy on offense that you're not fast enough to keep up with. And every time Jamison Williams touched the football, I was like, okay, there's speed. There's a lot of speed on this field, but none of the speed looks like that speed. And whether it's shallow crossers, bender routes, up the sideline, whatever the case may be, they were able to get a guy like that the ball in space, which is also what they did with Jalen Waddle last year when they played. And that happened to be the one thing that Georgia could not do anything about, and that opened up the rest of the game for Alabama. So it almost played out exactly the same way as it did last year.
And this is where, I mean, I will say, and I probably speak for both of us, that the Alabama offensive line came to fucking play.
Yes.
It was a big deal. I mean, you talked about it with the lack of pass rush from Georgia's perspective, but like, this was a team that was giving up pass rushes to teams that probably don't even have the pass rush capability of Georgia, even though they're not like elite. So they came to play. I think they changed the center, if I'm not mistaken. And anyways, it was great. I will say, like, one of the things, and why I say like styles make fight type situation, the second Jamison Williams touchdown, when they're playing like some sort of bracket, in out, the corner is outside low, the safety is out inside high, and all he does is stutter and go. And it's not a crazy route or anything. The release.
And honestly, it might not even really have been called to be like a quote unquote double move, as much as it is like, hey, if you see the safety is capping you, this, and you can try to change your tempo because we're throwing the ball to you anyways.
But like, so that is something you can't get last week against Auburn, playing their one single high press man, right? Or cover three. Like that, because you have a middle of the field safety, you're not, who are you getting to jump down?
There's no space.
Middle of the field safety is deep. He's not jumping on anything. But now you play bracket to one side. He's looking for that in-break and cut. So you throttle it down, shake, and then you're gone. And they do this all. I remember they did this against Auburn last year when Auburn was playing a completely different defense to hit. I don't remember who. Maybe it was Mechie last year in the Iron Bowl. So that is the type of thing that Georgia can give up, because when you play all this split safety coverage and you're doing stuff like that, you can get that route, that specific concept. Or you can get a route where, I remember last year in the game where you can get two receivers out to one side. You can get the safety to bite on the inside route, and then bang, you have that post behind his head because that safety's got to bite somewhere, right? Because he's got to bite on that in-breaking route. So that's the type of thing that Georgia will give you. And honestly, they probably give this to every other team they face, but who can take advantage of it is that unbelievable receiving core that Alabama seems to have every year, and a great quarterback and time to throw, right? Again, it's always going to be the
combination of things, yeah.
That combination, and then Bryce. And I think for me, the thing that he's super accurate. He gets the ball to the right receiver on time, but from the last drive in the Auburn game, because going like the first three quarters and most of the fourth quarter of the Iron Bowl, when he was getting pressured, it was getting him down. Mm-hmm. And then that last drive and then this Georgia game, he was getting pressured, but he was getting out. And even if that meant him throwing the ball away, even if that meant just not taking a sack, that's the difference, man. He's so good at that. He's been doing that the whole year. And like I said, there was about 3/4 of the Iron Bowl where, oh my God, we can't get off the line of scrimmage and we're getting sacked. Like Bryce can't make plays. That was really a very specific thing that Auburn was doing. And then, the rest of the season and then the Georgia game, he's able to make plays. I could see him winning the Heisman for sure.
I mean, I would not be shocked at all. For as much shit as I've given to Bill O'Brien, throughout the season, he dialed it up.
Yeah, man.
Like a lot of the stuff they ran were like specific cover two man, quarter styles beaters, which is obviously something that Georgia likes to play a lot when they're playing against a spread team that they really respect.
Yeah.
From a passing perspective. Some of it again is like blown coverages, but a lot of the coverages were blown because the way that the routes were distributing puts a lot of stress on the way that you're supposed to communicate through some of the coverages that Kirby has obviously borrowed from his time with Saban in Alabama. So that to me, again, it's just that nice combination of effects. And I really wanted to focus more in on that than Georgia's offense, because I actually think for all of Stetson's problems, short of the turnovers, they were fine offensively. It was just the turnovers end up making the margin of the score what it was. Like this game is probably, without the turnovers, it's probably closer to like 27-17 or something like that. But obviously, the pick six and then, the turnovers going for it on fourth down and not getting it. And then, kind of succumbing to the pressure in some other situations. That was really where the game broke open. So that to me is like, I don't know if the issue for me with Georgia, because I do still think they're one of the two best teams in the country. The issue to me with Georgia is that I don't know, even if you adjust what you did on defense, that you can say that you're going to keep Bryce from having that game again. I don't know if you're going to be able to stop that dude. It's going to be about what are you going to do on offense to hold on to the football and finish drives in the second half the way that they were able to in the first.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say with Bill O'Brien that they did a lot that I really liked was pretty simple. Formation into the boundary, put three receivers into the boundary. That means you got a lot of space for your two receivers up top, weak side option. Well, I guess weak side of the formation option. What Mechie on a slant, Mechie whoever on the slant into space, because if you play too high, you're draining out the underneath the middle coverage, and if you play into the boundary, then if the Mike's got to push over a bit, he's got to say, "Hey, I got three receivers into the boundary. Yeah. I'm a number 3 player. Like I'm going to open space up to the field." I think obviously the Georgia offense was fine. I agree 100%. 4 plays changed the game. Second and 9, I believe, on the Alabama. They're down 14 on the Alabama 15-yard line, 20-yard line. They run a fake bubble. They go 3 receivers down low. They run a fake bubble. And what they're trying to do is match up the slot receiver, who happened to be a tight end. It wasn't Bowers, happened to be a tight end, on the first linebacker up there to his side. Get split safety coverage, and then run him right to the middle of the field.
Yep.
So fake a block, get that linebacker to attach because he thinks it's bubble, and then go over top of him. We see that all the time, especially at the college level. That linebacker, I think is 8. Is it Harris? I don't remember. But anyways, makes a great play. Doesn't bite on anything. turns and runs with the tight end. Unbelievable play. Okay, that was second down. Third and 9 now. They basically try and do the same thing, except they put Bowers in the slot to the top. They get split safety again. They get the linebacker carrying that's the tight end. Bowers gets insane separation because he is nasty, this man.
Yes.
They get it. Really good throw. Put it to where
Safety makes a break. Safety makes a great break on the ball. He just dislodges the ball, man.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for Bowers, 8 times out of 10, he takes that contact and he holds on to it. It's a touchdown.
So that's a great play by the safety. And then on 4th and 9, they come with, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you said this to me, the Mocha A blitz. That was it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's like a common. You can like Google Mocha A blitz because I'm sure there's many articles.
It's one of the more popular.
One of the more popular Alabama blitzes. And they come with it. They get the pressure right away. He throws it away. That was so big. Like 2 plays where individual efforts by the Alabama players, first the linebacker, then the safety. And then obviously later in the game in the fourth quarter, the interception. Where we were talking about this before, the pick 6, Jordan Battle. Understand what Stetson Bennett is thinking. It's basically 3 in-breaking routes. So whenever you have 3 in-breaking routes or even 2 in-breaking routes or 1 in-breaking route, you read it. And the general rule is you read it inside to out. So Bowers gets taken up on the short in-breaking route. Then you have the slot. I forget who it was on the kind of 10-yard, 8-yard intermediate breaking slant glance, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just thinking, okay, man. You're just thinking, if I throw this ball on time, the safety is giving me like 5 yards of separation. If I just throw this ball on time, I have a window on the inside. I'm good. I throw it accurately. I throw it, I gun it in there. I'm good. And Battle makes a really great play. At the end of the day, you probably have to look at Battle's lean and the fact that he's flat-footed and throw the post on the outside for a touchdown because it was going to be a touchdown if you throw it. But I don't want to hate on the throw too much. I get what he was trying to do, and he was pretty much on time. It's not like he was late, and that would, you're thinking, all right, 1 to 2, the first line is taken, reset for this one, and Battle makes a really nice play.
He just makes the play. He makes the play. I mean, honestly, that's one of those throws where it's like the right decision, and it's a great decision when you got the arm to make the decision. Yeah. He just happened to be a beat late and doesn't have the arm to make up for it. And you kind of pointed it out. I mean, there was an opportunity to go over the top to the field.
Which is probably where the read should have taken him. But also it's like you never I get it, man.
Are you and let's be honest, are you liberating Stetson Bennett to leave the progression for the sake of saying, hey, if you see this and you're not sure, go ahead and work your eyes all the way back over to the field? Probably not, right? Like you're probably telling that quarterback, hey, we get split safety. We know they play bracket coverage. We're going to drain out the coverage with the first crosser. You're going to drill it in this hole right now. Wide receiver, you're going to get hit. Be prepared for it. We'll take our first down and move on. So it could be better, obviously, but those misses obviously hurt a lot. But I don't think that it's as bad, I think, with a little bit of separation now as I felt about it in the moment.
Also, that play, like 9 times out of 10, that's not a pick 6. It's a dislodging of the football.
Exactly.
He takes a big hit. You put him on his chest. He gets hit. Blah blah blah. Though again, like if I look at it and you go on the tape and you go talk to Stetson Bennett, you're like, hey, that safety's flat-footed. Throw the post. I get it, but I also understand like hindsight.
There's also
2020.
There's also a little bit to be put on the receiver because I think that he should probably have noticed the airspace that he had and broke his slant off a little quicker, a little sharper, and a little bit less of an angle, and probably would have had a better opportunity to get almost flatten it out a little bit. That's one of the, again, small details. Yeah. Those are the things that break, that kind of break open a game. And I think when we talk about the playoff, one of my big feelings is that these are the kind of situations that we are going to see again in the championship game because I do think that these two teams will be playing each other again.
So that obviously kept Georgia in it, put Alabama in it. We know that now Cincinnati was in it.
Right.
That leaves us to the Big Ten championship game with Michigan and Iowa. In a sense, the game played out like I thought it would because it was Iowa offense that could not do absolutely fuck all, which we understood
at all.
and a Michigan offense that really didn't do that much early in the game, and then they just and then the floodgates open, and that was it. But yeah, Michigan kind of proved again that this is a hell of a football team.
Yeah, I mean, for as much as I am going to stick to my pick that Georgia and Bama are the two best teams, but that don't mean that Michigan is far off. They are not far behind with the way that they're playing defense, and having the two edge rushers that they have just does so much for them. Like, I wish that there was more to say about their defense, and they do some interesting things. A lot of that we talked about last week after they played Ohio State. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is that they have two guys that can really just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback unlike anybody else, and that is basically what their defense is built off of. And then offensively, they've been able to set up a lot of those trick plays that you see, on a Saturday comes from all of what they have built in terms of an identity with being able to mash teams out of these formations, getting into these tighter formations and hurting teams with downhill runs, and then getting your end arounds, getting your reverses, your passes, all of those types of things were able to come off of that. There's really not a whole lot of analysis to give. Like you said, this game kind of played out the way that we previewed. Iowa was just even worse offensively than I think that even we had projected going into the game. And then those stops obviously stack up on top of each other. You lose the field position battle, and they were able to just kind of take off with the game in the second half. But yeah, another impressive showing for Michigan, who is very, very, I think, had an argument to be the number one team in the poll. And I think that had the margin of the game between Georgia and Alabama not been what it was, they probably do finish the poll number one going into the playoffs.
Well, the issue with that is who do they need, because the playoff was no matter what going to give us what they gave us.
Yeah, it was.
And it's nothing to do with rankings at this point. They just want they don't give a shit. They just they need the matchups first, and then we'll figure out the rankings.
Figure out everything else.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? I was watching Iowa's defense that is very good. Obviously, year after year, really good. And I just look at it and I'm like, man, how do teams not destroy it sometimes? Now they do play the run, but they play the run they're not max fitting everything every play, but god damn, they send a lot of bodies to the run, and you can get them. You can get them through the pass if you want to throw the ball on first down. But of course, you play in the Big Ten. No one wants to throw the ball on first down except Ohio State. So that's whatever. I mean, Michigan just looks incredible to me. I'm nervous. I guess let's get into it right now. Let's talk about the matchups here before I think either of us really get into watching the tape and figuring out who we really like here. But quickly, Cincinnati and Alabama. I'm thinking, Auburn gave them trouble man-to-man. You're going to get Cincinnati playing a lot of man-to-man. Very different type of man-to-man. We've talked about this on this podcast before, how Cincinnati plays defense. But a lot of man-to-man. It's tough, man. This is tough.
Honestly,
this is tough.
I was listening to Split Zone Duo, and they were kind of talking about how Cincinnati plays more man, more just straight man, and maybe playing tighter in windows will give Alabama trouble. Man, the numbers that I pulled before the game between Georgia and Bama last week did not go anywhere. I think that this is a really, really big ask of Cincy's DBs to stand up a man-to-man. These are the kinds of games. Obviously, losing Mechie hurts. We got news between last night and this morning that it was confirmation of a torn ACL. So, that obviously hurts a lot. But them playing the amount of just straight cover one and trying to send pressure the way that Cincy does, you still got to guard Jamison Williams, and that sounds like the perfect opportunity for crosser galore for Jaleel Billingsley. That just seems like you are absolutely asking for it. So a difficult matchup that way. The best pathway for Cincinnati is going to be the fact that Alabama still just cannot run the football, and Cincinnati is great at fitting the run, and maybe you're just able to create more trouble in terms of situations. You get more third downs where you can maybe kind of rely on that third down variance. Hey, we're a man team. We get in the third down. We'll gamble with that. And they're going to have to find a way to poke those holes in Alabama's offensive line in a way that Georgia was not, that Auburn was able to, and some of the other teams we saw in the second half of the year were able to against Alabama. That's the game.
Even,
They don't
against
do that,
the run, I would say that's important to get
100%.
TFLs against the run early downs.
Have to. If they don't do that, they will be boat raced. I'm happy that Cincinnati is in the playoffs. I'm happy that they're here, and I do think that they are a competitive opponent in terms of matchups. But when we talk about styles making fights, if they don't get negative plays, they are going to get 50 hung. You are not stopping this offense. You are not stopping Bryce Young right now. I'm sorry. It's not happening.
Yeah, it scares me a bit. I mean, this is just not the matchup. I would love them so much more against Georgia or Michigan. Alabama is just not the matchup. Again, maybe the Mechie thing is that important. Maybe Gardner can play it. You know, you want to man up, put Gardner on. I don't think they traveled so much. I mean, that's not really a thing that college teams do, but like,
right.
You know, put Gardner on Jameson. Hope you get it right there, and then maybe, you know, Slade Bolden and all the other receivers aren't they're like good. They're good. They're not like elite. So yeah, maybe I don't. I'm with you.
They just haven't seen They haven't seen a quarterback like this. This is what I always come back to. You have not seen a quarterback like this, and they haven't even really seen a defense like this. And this is not even a great defense by Alabama standards.
I agree.
They still haven't seen a guy like Will Anderson off the edge. So
that's
you know, Ritter would have to have an out of body experience, you know, in order for me to really feel confident about Cincinnati's chances to have this game be competitive going into the fourth quarter.
Look, I hope Cincy wins. You know, rooting for the
why
underdog,
not?
100%.
You know? Like, why not? I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to see it.
Well, I care. I don't want Alabama to win in the national championship.
Of course you don't.
Okay, and then flipping it over, Georgia, Michigan. I think at first I was like, you know, I do kind of like this matchup for Michigan, but then it's like, man, are they going to be able to run? It's so different than what we just saw. Again, it's Styles thing. It's so different than what we just saw, how Alabama can take advantage of them. I don't know if Michigan can take advantage of them if they can't run the football. And honestly, they didn't run the football that great against Iowa. So now you're talking about, okay, to go throw the football on Georgia. I don't know. You're gonna have a 70-yard, you know, halfback throw against Georgia. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, is that what you're going to rely on? I mean, if you make it work, then fine. But yeah, again, Styles making fights. Michigan's pathway here has been off of, you know, Corum and Haskins being the engine of this offense. Not that McNamara and McCarthy haven't been good as quarterbacks, but that's not what's led them to this point. You know, this is now you are in that kind of dangerous territory of what do you want to do from a game planning perspective? Do you want to just lean on that? Because I think the more that they do that, the more that you invite for them to play with their biggest bodies on the field.
Yeah.
And this is a defense that's built to have its big bodies on the field this year. And that I don't like that matchup for Michigan, not between the tackles at all. And then that kind of begs the fact that, like, well, when you do pass, what does that look like? Because they also don't really have those matchup winners.
Nope.
I think their wide receiver room is decent. You know, it's workable. It's been good enough for them throughout the year.
Tight end's pretty good.
They don't have exactly, and they just don't have. Yeah, Schoonmaker I like a lot. I like a lot. Like their combination of tight ends are problems for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But if you can't go win out on the perimeter and you allow a team like Georgia with its body types to really kind of squeeze the field on you, it's going to be a lot of trouble on your offense. So I'm interested to see, like, do they come out with just like a bunch of trick looks, right? Like a bunch of unbalance, like they gave to Ohio State.
Which they did, and they did against Iowa too, to a certain degree.
A bunch of nub looks, and that's when you can get back into like those 3 tight end sets, and maybe you put a bunch of tight ends on the field, but you line up in the spread anyways, just to see if you can find some kind of edge in that way. So I would be interested to see, you know, how they're able to reapply their personnel in a matchup like this. But I just don't feel great about this matchup for Michigan either. I do think they can be competitive, but just thinking about it on a down-by-down basis, this is just not necessarily the most explosive offense in the world. They've been great at being efficient. They're just not the most explosive in the world, and I don't know if that's going to be enough for them when they play Georgia.
Does Kirby make the quarterback switch?
No, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
May as well just put that to bed. It's not going to happen. And what I will say is that from Michigan's perspective, you got to look at that game, the second half of that game, and be tapping Aiden Hutchinson on the shoulder and saying, dude, you want a chance to go be a top 5 NFL draft pick. Go do it again against this team. And they will have the opportunity if they're able to stop the run. So it's kind of funny. The more I think about this matchup, it's going to be about the run game. You know, it's going to be 100% about the run game, because I know that Georgia's got to be looking at this like, hey, if we can get to the national championship game throwing the ball less than 18 times, we will take that 100 times out of 100. I don't think that they are going to want Bennett to be in situations where, he has to pass the ball. They're going to try to avoid drop back game, I think, as much as possible.
All right. With that said, let's head on to the NFL, where we'll get to our favorite segment of the week. Honestly, it's my favorite segment of the week, titled "Is Patrick Mahomes a Good Quarterback?" Presented by Western and Southern. Whether it's football success or financial savvy, the right questions help set the stage for winning strategies. Western and Southern is teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to share insights that can help put you ahead on both your fantasy and financial scoreboards. Want to hear about Chris's old playing days or behind the scenes with Al on Sunday Night Football? How about a need to know for your financial future? Now you can ask about either or both. And every football or financial question you ask earns you a chance to win a catered party for February's big game. Check out the Chris Collinsworth podcast and Western and Southern's Instagram for answers to the best questions each week. Submit your questions at westernsouthern.com/askchris. One more time, that is westernsouthern.com/askchris. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link below in the description below. Remember, with Western and Southern, you can rest assured on game day. All right. I was talking a lot of shit during the game to you and to some other friends about how Patrick Mahomes is just not very good. And I was getting a lot of pushback. And then you came before we started recording this podcast, and you said, Patrick, not looking too great. What did you see when you watched Patrick against Denver last night or 2 nights ago, and just in general that Chiefs offense?
It's just they're, you know what they looked a lot like when I watched them? Fucking Bills earlier in the season. That's what it reminded me a lot of. Like, a lot of the window dressing has come off of this offense. That's probably the thing that stuck out to me the most. I was watching play after play, and I'm like, the only player I'm seeing that moves in motion is Travis Kelce, and it's the same motion every time. It's 2x2, but Travis Kelce is the outside receiver. He's off the ball, and he literally just walks. He takes this nice little stroll in to be the off tight end, and you're either running an RPO, or some kind of like play action concept, or outside zone off of it. So that was the first thing that stood out to me was, what's not happening with this offense, because we've seen what it looks like when it's humming, and you've got, Tyreek Hill on these jet motions or, these slingshot or orbit motions and all of that with all the play fakes and RPOs off of it. So I think that what's really seems to be happening is there's a fundamental lack in trust in any player that is not Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. They don't want to waste them as decoys anymore because they don't feel like they can generate offense if those two don't have an opportunity to touch the ball down the field. So that was number one. The first thing that stood out to me. The second thing, and this is to your point about what I was saying about Mahomes, is the placement is just bad. The ball placement is bad. Earlier in the year, I think I was a little bit more forgiving because I think obviously a lot of the turnovers were bad luck. And I think kind of getting hit with like 3 years worth of turnover regression, basically in one half of a season with some of the ways that things are going. And then it looked like, he had kind of figured out some things when they played the Raiders. And I know we kind of talked about, well, like it's probably more just about Oakland doing the thing that the Chiefs love to see more than anything else on the world. So to me, like it was just watching that game. Even the completions were off target. Drags being thrown behind guys or above their heads. These glances and slants and curls, and the ball is way outside of the receiver's frame. Outbreaking routes being thrown way too far out towards the sideline. And you pointed this out as well with their receivers. A lot of what they were able to do was about finding air, right? You find air, you sit in a window, and you trust that Mahomes will find you. And in the process of him not finding you, he's going to extend the play enough for you to find the next window. They weren't necessarily outside of their RPO game. They really weren't playing as a very precise passing offense, right? There's a lot of room for you to kind of freelance within Reed's system right now. And right now, that's just not getting any returns. They're getting absolutely zero returns off of that. So when you add in the fact that they're not playing the most precise passing offense right now, the window dressing has basically come completely off of this offense, and your quarterback is having trouble with accuracy in a way that I really have not seen from him since he was at Texas Tech or his first year as a starter. Yeah. It's been alarming That part is alarming. So I know that because of the way that they've looked the last few weeks between the Cowboys game, the Raiders game, and in this game, people are thinking they're surging. If you go back and watch this game, guys,
It's
they
bad.
basically won it because they had a good opening script. That's what won this football game. They marched down the field in their first 20 plays, which is a nice opening script to have. They put up 10 points, and that was all that they needed to win the game because the Broncos stink on offense right now. Like,
Yeah, I would tell you.
that's
I
all
mean,
I saw.
Chris said it during the broadcast. Teddy had been playing a lot better than what he showed against the Chiefs, who have been playing really good defense the past few weeks. But yeah, just talking about this offense, the accuracy is not there, and I think like they're stuck in this transition period where you're trying to have to turn this offense into a precision underneath offense, because when we talk about it so much, what teams are giving them, they're not letting them hit explosive plays. That's not Patrick Mahomes. It's not. It's never been him. He's never been a super accurate player, especially underneath. Where he wins is with the ability to create explosive plays after explosive play after explosive plays, and then pairing that with two incredible players in Kelsey and Tyreek. But them having to be this underneath team is just, it doesn't work for them who they are. I thought that the Broncos didn't even play a lot of like quarters per se. I mean, they did. It's the Broncos. But
Right.
what they did a lot was spin to cover one, or even cover three, mostly cover one, with a robber coming down, one cross, one lurk, whatever, one robber. They don't want to take chances on the outside anymore, man. They will not throw one-on-ones on the outside. We saw it in the Raiders game, even though they didn't complete them. If you're going to play a one high safety defense, even if it's post-snap rotated, you have chances on the outside. They don't want to take it anymore. They want to take a 9-ball. Hey, throw a 9-ball. Like that's how you're going to create explosive plays when teams are giving you these quarter shells, or even a rotated cover one or cover three defense. So that like they're not. That's how you're going to create explosive plays, and they're not doing that. And then the freelance thing is just like, this offense just like aesthetically looks terrible.
It looks so bad.
It looks
Oh, it
so
looks so bad.
bad because you have now doing all that stuff and then them completing passes, no problem. Yeah, it's great. Everyone's having a good time. But now you're doing all that stuff where everyone's trying to find open grass and stuff like that. And the routes, Kelsey's a good route runner, but he's a very specific type of route runner. And that fits so perfectly with how Mahomes wanted to play. But, it looks so weird now. The ball's not getting there on time. And I said this before, but the tackle play that has gotten a little bit better, but the tackle play, going from Mitchell Schwartz on one side has been dreadful. There's a guy who can make Patrick Mahomes right a lot. And that leads to completions down the field to Kelsey and to other people who are getting open late. They're not getting that anymore. And Mahomes is not good. I mean, there's another play where he throws a completion to Tyreek Hill or whoever it was, I don't remember, and it gets bounced off on the RPO slant, and it gets bounced up in the air, and Surtain intercepts it. Like, that's been happening the whole year, obviously. Like, that's unbelievably bad luck. I don't know if that would change so much. I just don't know if all these drops and stuff off and interceptions would change so much about the overall efficiency of this offense. It's really, 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 really bad right now. And yeah, I mean, I'm just piggybacking on all those things you said, but it's the accuracy is not there. The way they run their offense seems to not work now that you have to be a precision-based offense. I'm curious about, obviously you guys will hear this Tuesday morning after the Bills play, but I'm curious to see Josh Allen trying to work the same issues out. He did it against the Saints. We'll see tonight, against the Patriots. If you can be this quick game quarterback and be super accurate, because it's not happening right now with the Chiefs. And, I tweeted about it last night, like the AFC should have put this team away a long time ago. So that gives me hope that, look, we have 3 great seasons of Patrick Mahomes. He'll figure it out. We have Andy Reid, a lot of historical data that says Andy Reid's a great coach, so you assume it'll figure it out. But right now, it is absolutely fucking abysmal.
Simple and plain.
Yeah, there you go. All right, our last segment of the day. Again, my favorite segment, entitled "How Can Seth Shoehorn the 2019 LSU Tigers into More Conversation?" Presented by PFF. Right now, it is the last day for the Cyber 40 sale. So if you go on PFF.com, promo code Cyber40, you get 40% off any PFF subscription. Grades and data are live for every single player who logged the snap last week. Of course, you can read all the locked article content, me and Diante stuff. College football betting dashboards, grade power projections, cover probabilities, betting values, 0 to 100 grades of every single player, including the top rookies on every team, player prop tools, much, much more. Promo code Cyber40 for 40% off any subscription. Also, Also, the holiday season is here, and because the Too High listeners are the best of all the PFF podcasts, we want your help to create a list of what PFF should build for you. Email us at contact@pff.com. That's contact@pff.com with the answers to these two questions. What PFF feature do you love the most? And what do you want the most from PFF? Tell us which podcast sent you, and we can put your ideas into a wish list for 2022. All right, the big matchup was Burrow versus Mahomes. I guess I'll start with this one. Everyone's talking Burrow versus Mahomes. Burrow versus Herbert. Chargers get the win, get the huge lead early, and then have to fight off a valiant, swollen-handed Joe Burrow comeback attempt. Look, there's a lot of narratives about this game. I'll just give you what I saw from both quarterbacks. I thought Herbert. The thing with Herbert is he can do stuff that other guys can't. I will say that the throw that he makes on the throwback, when he rolls out one way and then throws it back across the field, I will say, look, Mike Williams, I think it's Williams, has a ton of separation, and he allows Jesse Bates, the throw allows Jesse Bates back into the play. So that's the one where I'm like, everyone's hyping that play up. That's not a great play. That should have been an easy touchdown.
To me, that's not the greatest example in general of a great quarterback play, because basically every NFL quarterback can roll out, wind the hell up, and then just try to throw the ball as high and as far as possible. We see that in every pro day now, right? Yeah. They do the little bootleg, roll all the way out to the numbers, and then try to throw the ball to the opposite side of the field. So that is the one play a season where you get a chance to show that off.
The first one to Mike Williams on the second play of the game or whatever, that's disgusting. Yeah. Because they're throwing the corner route, the high corner route off of, we've talked about this play so much. You boot the quarterback off and you run your 3-level flood play, or you're just running your sail concept to the outside 3-level flood play. And the outside receiver has a corner route. And the only reason you run a corner route is because you don't want the cornerback to be able to fall off a post route and then be in the zone where you actually want to throw the ball to the crossing route or to the sail route. That is why you run the corner route. Because if it's a corner route, the cornerback says, well, I'm deep thirds or I'm man-to-man or whatever. If I fall off this corner route, no one else is there. The safety is inside of me, so I can't fall off this corner route. Now, how many quarterbacks throw that corner route? Zero. There's no corner. No one throws that. They're all waiting for the progression, which we've talked about a lot, which is the corner post, right? Mm-hmm. No one throws a corner route. I swear this is one of the most common football plays in the NFL right now. Concepts in the NFL right now. No one throws it. What he does. So Jesse Bates is in the middle of the field saying, "All right, I got that corner route, and I got this over route coming in front of my face. Well, I know I have the corner is locked on the corner route, so I'm going to go jump on this. I'm going to nail down on this crosser." And Herbert says, "Fuck you. I'm going to throw the corner route. I'm going to throw the corner route." Nobody does that. And that was a sick-ass throw. Puts it over the shoulder to Mike Williams, and they get a big play out of it. And then I think, even the jump ball to Mike Williams later in the game, where he boxed out Mike Hilton, which was very
on the sideline. Yeah, that was so mean. That was so mean.
And then you have some other really great throws, but there were some concerning throws, I thought, from Herbert where he just missed. Yeah. And this is someone where I think we have talked about how even with that cannon, he does have a lot of control over where the football goes generally, but there were some misses in this game. I do think one of the issues is because he throws the ball so hard, when he misses, it looks really bad. Mm-hmm. But there were some misses. Now, did he miss? Did he misread stuff? Not really. He was really good, making all the right decisions. He just missed, and again, it looks worse than it is because when he misses, it's really bad. And this was Oregon Justin Herbert. No touch on the football, no accuracy, and it's bad. With that said, this isn't normally who he is. So I'm willing to and there were such other great throws in this game that it's like it's okay.
I was going to say, to me, like we still have to remember this is still a very young quarterback.
Yeah.
So if that's the price,
Yeah.
that you have to pay in order to get what we saw, I'm willing to incur that price for the time being, because the highs were so high. But like you were saying, like it's not always the most explosive, or the bombs down the field that are the most impressive. It's like it's throws like his second one of the game on 3rd and 9, where he's almost like sliding one way and he's just able to rocket the ball into a window going away from him. He's starting to get those small little intricacies, and that's all like footwork and timing and how your shoulders are placed. And for a guy like him who's not really interested in throwing the ball with a lot of touch, that wants to fire the ball in all the time, he's really got to be on top of his feet, his shoulders, his balance, how he navigates the pocket. So that way you don't see some of the egregious misses. And that's going to be part of the variance of his game if Los Angeles stays committed to allowing him to really rip the ball down the field. But I was very happy with what we saw, especially early in that game, schematically for them. Just being able to get him in situations where they had the one-on-ones they wanted, and then liberating him now to be able to take those. Like, in some ways, it almost sucks that it's happening at this pace, because you know what they're all going to say if they make the playoffs? Oh, well, the first half of the year, we were just trying to get him comfortable with the structure of the offense before we cut him loose. No, that's not what happened. You guys just stop calling plays like cowards on offense. But I was very happy with what we saw early in the game. Even the interception, obviously, good decision. Ball just falls out of the guy's hands, and into another defenders. He basically kind of got some karmic justice from the Burrow interception that happened earlier in the game. But yeah, I thought that he played well. I thought that once Burrow's interception luck kind of turned a little bit, I thought he looked good as well.
Yeah.
And watching those two, it's really interesting to see kind of the contrast in styles, because obviously Burrow's numbers would suggest that he's a more explosive quarterback, but that's not necessarily his skill set as a thrower. But they had obviously liberated him to take those one-on-ones. And I think that now you're kind of starting to see both of those quarterbacks kind of even out, or I think return to offensive approaches that are probably more natural matches for their skill sets.
Yeah, I thought Burrow was Burrow. He was really good, and obviously the pinky thing might have hurt him, but he also made some really great throws. Obviously, the one at the end was, you're like, come on, dude, just throw the ball over the defender, please.
Right.
Like, come on. But besides that, his outbreaking throws are sickening. He's so good at putting the ball on the sideline. Usually on deep outs by the wide out, or even sail routes by the slot, or even across the field, like he hit Tyler Boyd. Oh, was it across the field? I don't remember. Anyways, he hit Tyler Boyd, a wobbly pass, but he hit Tyler Boyd on the sideline. That was really nice. And yeah, he just gets it done. I mean, the issue is I think obviously I could probably speak for both of us. If you're picking again, you probably take Herbert number one. I don't think that's really not a question.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think the thing is, Burrow is as smart, whatever, a great processor. Like, I was thinking about comparing him to Jimmy Garoppolo, where it's like Jimmy Garoppolo's been in the league for 10 years now, and he still makes the same fucking mistakes.
Yes.
Whereas Burrow is a second-year player. He's super smart. He throws the ball on time, etc., etc. But the thing with Herbert is Herbert's making those same decisions as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously unexpected from his time at Oregon, but he's not making. It's not like he's just this guy with this cannon and then he's a bonehead. He's not a bonehead. So you're pairing the cannon. That, I know he's obviously, like I talked about, he's gotten so much better with his accuracy. Obviously, maybe you could say he needs more touch, but again, he's so accurate that it's it doesn't even matter. And then the processing has been lights out. So it's I think as much as I love Burrow, I would you have to take Herbert, right?
You'd have a hard time convincing me that it's not Herbert one right now with this generation and class of quarterbacks right behind. I guess you could say if you're going to use like the Lamar Jackson as a dividing line for the last class of quarterbacks, he would be at the top for the next,
Yeah.
the next generation of QBs. So yeah, we're going to be in a really good spot, I think, with quarterbacks. We're seeing just this different evolution of skill sets, and it's going to be interesting to see how we continue to see these offenses built out around these guys. Because I mean, if you look at the data between Herbert and Burrow, and this is the last point I'll make on it, is aside from the interceptions, like you look at a lot of the data, they basically played an even game. It's just that Burrow turned the ball over one more time than Herbert did.
Yeah.
But in terms of like their average depth of target, how often they were throwing the ball past the sticks, how many first downs they gained, how long it was taking the two of them to throw, like a lot of the data would suggest that they're able to play each other evenly. And if that's what we see in the AFC, you can add that to Lamar and Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield, and that kind of becomes that handful of guys who are all competing in the AFC with their
tier one,
franchises.
because now Patrick Mahomes is in tier 3, right? So we don't have
right, exactly. So he's in his own thing. He's completely he's falling a little bit behind these guys right now. But I will say that the AFC is in a pretty good spot with quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, it was a fun game to watch. You wish that the injury doesn't happen to Burrow, and you wish that fucking Jamar Chase catches that damn 9 route. Not only did he drop that one, he dropped another 2 in this game as well. So come on, man. T. Higgins is awesome. Great. Man.
Great.
Oh, I love it. Goes up and makes catches. There was a sick throw on a touchdown. Burrow puts it a little high, and Higgins goes and gets it. But
just
a really
goes up
nice
and gets
read,
it every time.
Holding the safety and then bang in the seam. Ooh, that was nice.
Every time.
Yeah. And that's cool to see him playing inside and being able to make plays, because I don't think they put him inside a lot. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think they put him inside a lot. So it was a fun game. Obviously, you would have liked it not to the turnover luck to kind of be even early in the game, so we get a more even matchup. Even though the Bengals kind of got back in the game, and then Mixon, fucking goddamn it. Anyways, that's it. That's the show. We're done. See you guys later this week.
Yes, sir.